A child once stood before the portrait of his father, a world-famous R&B legend, and quietly asked his mother, "Do you love me?" That single question echoed through a house built on fame, betrayal, and broken hearts. Behind the spotlight's glow were tragedies no one ever sang about. One artist was caught in a scandal so twisted it defied belief, an affair with his best friend's late wife's stepchild. Another crossed the darkest line imaginable, assaulting a fan in his studio, then turning that trauma into a song. And somewhere, a man who sang about love in a spotless white tuxedo kept a hidden collection, dozens of secret recordings of women he filmed without their consent. What you're about to witness isn't about judgment. It's about revelation, about the truth that fame doesn't just expose light, it magnifies the shadows. Sometimes, the stage becomes the perfect hiding place for sin. And if you're brave enough to face the darkness behind the applause, stay until the end. Because the most chilling secrets are always hiding behind the loudest ovations. David Ruffin, Motown's angel of deception. The secret they tried to bury. They called him the golden voice of Motown. The man who made My Girl an anthem and left millions of women swooning. But behind that velvet voice was a storm darker than anyone imagined. Few knew that the same man who sang about love once sent the woman he claimed to love, Tammy Terrell, to the hospital more than once. Her medical records were sealed, but whispers still echo. Was it really illness that took her life, or heartbreak? David Ruffin burst into the music world like a supernova. The pompadour hair, the sharp suits, the mesmerizing eyes that could make a crowd melt and hide 1,000 lies. On stage, he was electric. Off stage, he vanished into limousines with mystery women who never seemed to return. "I saw David do drugs right before he went on," one drummer recalled. Then he'd walk out there and sing like nothing happened, like his demons were his backup singers. And Tammy, the woman who matched his fire note for note, was found collapsed in her bathroom, her head against the sink. She never named her abuser, but a close friend swore Tammy whispered, "If I die, don't let David near my body." At her funeral, Ruffin forced his way to the altar and shouted, "I'll sing for her. I'm the one she loved." Her family had him dragged out of the church. Expelled from the Temptations for his ego and erratic behavior, David spiraled into madness. He'd call old friends in tears, mumbling apologies before hanging up. One night, he smashed a mirror and screamed, "I see the devil in my eyes." Police later arrested him for breaking into an ex-girlfriend's home, the same woman who had sued him for assault. In 1991, his story ended the way all tortured legends do, tragically and alone. He was found lifeless in a Philadelphia motel. A stranger had dropped him at a hospital door and disappeared into the night. The autopsy found a lethal dose of drugs in his blood. In his empty wallet, no cash, just a crumpled photo of him and Tammy with the words, "I should have changed." The press called his death predictable. But for the fans who grew up with his music, it felt like the loss of a fallen angel. One fan wrote, "David Ruffin didn't need forgiveness. He needed saving." Behind every Motown love song, there are ghosts they never wanted us to see. And maybe the greatest tragedy of all is this: David Ruffin could make the world fall in love, but never learned how to love himself. Millie Jackson, the unapologetic queen of desire, the woman whose story the industry tried to bury. They called her the queen of the bedroom, the one who made men bow their heads in both shame and admiration. But behind the raunchy lyrics and sultry stage presence was a truth so raw that even record executives wanted it locked away. Millie didn't just sing, she confessed. Her microphone was her weapon, her therapy, her rebellion. In an era when women were told to whisper about sex, she screamed it from the stage. "I'm going to say everything they told women to stay quiet about," she declared, and she meant it. But the boldness came with a price. In 1978, a major record label nearly suspended her entire contract after discovering she had recorded real, intimate phone calls with her lovers and turned them into music. One studio technician recalled, "It wasn't singing. It was a purge. It was so real it made my skin crawl." Her album Still Caught Up wasn't just about infidelity, it was a diary of power, pain, and payback. A mirror of a woman who'd been used, hurt, and who learned to play the game better than anyone else. But that same honesty made her a target. One deranged fan even threatened to kill her if she ever mentioned animal sex on stage again. Then came Dallas, 1985. Millie vanished for 2 days during her tour. The official statement said fatigue, but insiders whispered the truth. She'd been held captive by a jealous ex-lover who couldn't stand hearing his sins turned into song. The police were never called. The next night, Millie walked on stage as if nothing had happened. Her love life was a storm, wilder than any of her lyrics. She once fell for a married producer who humiliated her by leaking an explicit demo as revenge. Yet, when asked about heartbreak, she said, "I didn't lose faith in men. I lost faith in the industry. They wanted me to be sexy and polite. But I'm no Madonna. I'm a country girl who swears." Decades later, as female rappers were hailed for their explicit verses, fans began calling Millie the grandmother of rebellion. But by then, she was living quietly in a small Atlanta apartment, still receiving hate mail accusing her of ruining black culture. Millie Jackson was the first woman to speak her truth, unfiltered, unafraid, and unrepentant. The world may have turned its back on her, but as she once said, "I don't need to be loved. I just need to be remembered as the one who never shut up." Ike Turner, the father of rock or the devil behind the music. They called him the father of rock and roll. But to many who knew him, especially Tina Turner, he was something far darker. Internal police records from his 1974 and 1989 arrests painted a disturbing portrait of a man who could create music that electrified the world yet destroy lives behind closed doors. In 1951, Ike Turner changed music forever with Rocket 88, widely hailed as the first rock and roll song in history. But offstage, his name carried a different weight. In 1960, he met a young singer named Anna Mae Bullock, soon to be known to the world as Tina Turner. For the next 16 years, she was his muse, his star, his possession, and tragically, his victim. Hospital reports tell the story Tina could not. Broken bones, bruises, black eyes, each time explained away with the same trembling words, "I fell." Nurses remembered the fear in her eyes, the silence in her voice. Behind the fame and flashing lights, she lived in a private hell. A confidential Motown file revealed that Ike forced himself on her even when she was ill, once raging, "You can be sick with the world, but you can't be sick with me." Bandmates stayed silent. "I heard her crying," one admitted years later, "but I needed the money." When Tina finally escaped in 1976, barefoot and penniless, Ike's empire began to crumble. Addiction took over. Arrests piled up, assault, weapons, and suspected drug trafficking. The genius who gave birth to rock was now drowning in his own chaos. In 1989, he was again arrested for beating another young singer, but she refused to testify. The case disappeared, just like so many of his victims' voices. Ike Turner died of a cocaine overdose in 2007. The headlines came and went. No one mourned. Tina stayed away. "I forgive him," she said. But forgiveness doesn't mean going back. After his death, a recording surfaced. Just Ike, alone at the piano, whispering to himself, "I invented rock and roll, but I didn't invent love." Some say genius and monstrosity are two sides of the same coin. But when silence hides the truth for decades, the real monsters aren't just the ones who hurt. They're the ones who knew and said nothing. Bobby Womack, the man cursed by his own friend's blood. Even the toughest hearts tremble at the story of Bobby Womack, a man who survived fame, temptation, and betrayal, but never escaped the shadows he created for himself. Born in Cleveland in 1944, Bobby was the embodiment of soul, raw, aching, and painfully human. He began his journey with the Valentinos, guided and supported by his close friend and mentor, Marvin Gaye. But when Marvin was tragically killed in 1984, the unthinkable happened. Just months after the funeral, Bobby married Marvin's widow, Anna Gordy. The music world recoiled in shock. People whispered that he hadn't even wiped away his tears before lying beside the woman who had shared his best friend's bed. Yet that was only the beginning of his downfall. While living with Anna, Bobby began an affair with her stepdaughter, Marvin's own child. When the young woman discovered that Bobby had secretly kept her intimate photos, she told her mother. What followed was chaos. A violent confrontation erupted between the two women. Bobby fled, leaving behind only a recorded apology that, to this day, has never been heard in full. Public outrage was merciless. Radio stations banned his music. Friends turned their backs. For nearly a decade, Bobby Womack became a ghost in an industry he once ruled. One musician who worked with him said, "I don't know what was scarier, the music he made or the way he lived outside the studio." Haunted by guilt and isolation, Bobby turned to drugs. He suffered terrifying hallucinations and once ran into the street screaming, "I am the devil, but I don't want to die like the devil." He was institutionalized, then vanished from the public eye for years. When he finally returned in the early 2000s, his comeback album The Bravest Man in the Universe felt like a confession, a final attempt at redemption. But his body had already endured too much. In 2014, Bobby Womack died of heart failure. The media reported it quietly, almost as if the world wanted to forget. But true fans never did. They remembered the man who sinned, suffered, and sang with the voice of a broken angel. His final resting place remains uncertain, just like his soul. It's as if Bobby Womack's life was erased by the very choices that defined him. Yet through it all, his music remains, a warning, a prayer, and a reminder that even the deepest wounds can sing. Rick James, the wildest, most seductive monster in R&B history. He once bragged, "My body is the temple of sensuality." But few knew that behind those tinted shades was a haunted soul, a man who devoured everything around him, even the people who loved him. Rick James didn't need an introduction. The creator of Super Freak made America dance with fire. His beats were electric, his presence magnetic, his confidence unstoppable. But when the spotlight dimmed, Rick didn't go home. He dove into a darker world, smoky rooms, naked bodies, and tables dusted with cocaine like it was ordinary salt. In 1991, that darkness came crashing down. A young woman testified that Rick and his girlfriend had held her captive for 3 days, tortured her, burned her with cigarettes, and filmed her agony. The victim couldn't recall every detail. Drugs had blurred her memory. But the photos of her bruises told a story too horrific to ignore. In 1994, Rick James was sentenced to prison. When a guard asked how he felt, Rick didn't cry. He simply asked, "Can I bring my guitar?" He showed no remorse. Even after his release in 1996, he proudly called himself the Super Freak again. "I'm not a hero," he said. "I'm a symbol of pleasure." But the world had moved on. MTV cut his videos. Record labels turned their backs. The women who once screamed his name now whispered in fear. Rick James, the sex god of funk, had become the ghost of excess. In 2004, he died of a heart attack. Autopsy reports revealed a deadly cocktail in his blood: methamphetamine, Valium, and painkillers. In a drawer, police found an unsent letter to his daughter. "If you hear what they say about me, believe at least half of it, and I regret not keeping the other half." Rick James' hands were stained with both brilliance and blood. He was the warning behind the fame, a reminder that even the brightest lights can burn the soul to ashes. Jackie Wilson, the stage lover, the real-life fugitive. On stage, he could make women faint with a single note. Off stage, he left behind broken hearts and unanswered questions. Some children never even knew his face, only the echo of a name their mothers whispered. They called him Mr. Excitement, the man with a voice that could lift souls and dance moves so electric they made Elvis look like an amateur. But behind that spotlight was chaos. Jackie fathered at least 10 children with more than 7 women, many of whom never saw a dime of support. In 1961, his charm turned dangerous. A model accused him of assault after an after-party. Witnesses said she was crying and bruised. The case vanished after a quiet settlement, money washing away the noise. And the world kept dancing to Jackie's rhythm, pretending not to see. He drifted from woman to woman, city to city, Chicago, Detroit, New York, always leaving whispers in his wake. One month, he was seen holding hands with a teenage girl. The next, Rumors claimed he was engaged to his co-star's ex-wife. But the industry stayed silent. Jackie was a star who sold tickets, the rare black performer who could make both black and white audiences rise to their feet together. Then, in 1975, the music stopped. While performing Lonely Teardrops, Jackie collapsed mid-song. A coma. For 9 long years, he lay silent. A man who once made the world scream, now unable to speak, sing, or even remember the faces that loved him. When he died in 1984, there was no grand farewell. No headlines. Just a small funeral and a few lines in the paper. No one mentioned the lawsuit. No one mentioned the nameless children. But his music, that voice, it never died. Jackie Wilson left behind songs that made the world believe love was real, even if he couldn't always live it himself. Because sometimes, we only want to remember the artist as the light hits him, not the man standing in the shadows, searching for a way out. Sylvester, the queen of disco who lived in a man's body. They called him Aretha Franklin in a wedding dress. Not for his voice, but for his courage, the audacity to step onto the stage in a glittering gown, a wig and false eyelashes at the height of the 1970s, when a black man like that could be beaten in the streets or blacklisted from every chart in America. Born in 1947 in Watts, California, Sylvester became the first openly gay black artist to sing unapologetically about same-sex love. His hit You Make Me Feel, Mighty Real, wasn't just a disco anthem, it was a declaration of freedom for millions who had been forced to hide. But while the dance floors embraced him, the industry did not. In 1979, a leaked meeting tape from a major R&B radio station captured an executive saying, "We can't play people like that. Parents will pull the plug." Many artists refused to share the stage with him, afraid of being labeled gay by association. During one show in Houston, bottles and shoes were hurled at him. Sylvester didn't flinch. He wiped the blood from his forehead and kept singing, "I am what I am." That moment became legend, a symbol of defiance for an entire underground generation. But fame has claws. In 1984, a former lover sold their private tapes to a porn magazine, nearly destroying him. He called it a wound that never heals. He lost friends, gigs, and dignity, performing under fake names in small bars just to survive. By 1988, his body was failing. AIDS took him at just 41. There were no tributes, no national headlines, just a short notice that read, "Disco singer Sylvester dies at 41. Yet time has rewritten his story. Today, Sylvester stands as a wounded icon, a man who lived his truth too early for a world not ready to face it. He left behind not only that inimitable, soaring falsetto but also a question that still echoes through generations. Why hide your true self just to earn applause? Billy Preston, the keyboard genius who carried too many locked doors in his soul. If music truly speaks the language of the spirit, then Billy Preston was its divine interpreter, a man who played as if translating heaven's rhythm for mortal ears. But behind that brilliance lived a world of silence, lawsuits, and secrets buried deeper than the notes he played. Born in 1946, Billy rose from church pews to the biggest stages on earth. He became known as the Fifth Beatle, the only black artist ever officially associated with the legendary group. His fingers danced across the keys like lightning, infusing gospel fire into rock and pop. But when the music stopped, a haunting loneliness took over. In 1992, Billy's world began to unravel. A tax fraud arrest opened the door to darker whispers, secret gatherings, missing tapes, and accusations no one dared to speak aloud. A retired FBI agent once hinted, "There's a file on someone tied to forced encounters, but no witness will come forward. It could be Billy." No one ever proved it, yet from that moment on, Billy was quietly erased. Tours vanished. Labels pulled contracts. Producers stopped answering his calls. One man recalled, "Billy called me in the middle of the night, crying, asking, 'Why did they drop me?'" In 2006, after years of battling kidney disease, Billy Preston passed away. At his funeral, stars came to honor the music, but not the man behind the scandal. The silence was deafening. Yet one haunting clip remains, Billy alone in an empty church, playing his heart out to God. As a single tear rolled down his cheek, he ended on a quiet, trembling chord. In that moment, beauty and tragedy became one. Because sometimes, the greatest artists don't die from silence, they live in it. James Mtume, the rhythm master who lived in shadows. James Mtume wasn't just a musician. He was an alchemist of sound, a man whose rhythms could send chills through an audience. Born in 1947, Mtume carved his legacy in the smoky underworld of jazz, funk, and R&B throughout the 1970s and 80s. But while his music stirred souls, his private life led many into confusion, fascination, and fear. Behind the studio doors, Mtume's world was a labyrinth of sensual energy and spiritual experimentation, a world few dared to enter and fewer ever spoke about again. He infused funk with meditation, with African consciousness, with the pulse of Black philosophy. Yet offstage, rumors swirled of secret love circles, where bandmates, managers, and even stage crew were allegedly bound by silence, signing agreements to never speak of what occurred in the candlelit penthouses reserved for each tour. One singer who toured with him in 1977 later whispered, "After the show, I was taken into a room with candles and drums. No one spoke. They just stared. I left because I was terrified." She remained silent for decades, until 2003, when Mtume received a Lifetime Achievement Award. An anonymous letter surfaced, detailing everything she had seen. It was never published. By 1985, Mtume seemed to vanish. Some said he turned to politics, others claimed he taught philosophy. But no one could say for certain where he lived or what he truly sought. One journalist who tried to find him later received an anonymous call. "Leave him alone. Some things are meant to stay in the dark." When James Mtume died in 2022, his obituary spoke only of his music, not the mysteries, not the shadows, not the lives forever changed in his orbit. For those who walked through both his brilliance and his darkness, the memories remain restless. Not every artist is meant to be understood. Some are born to enlighten, to seduce, to destroy, and to disappear into the very void they created. You've now crossed the halfway mark in this journey through fame, sin, and secrecy, where truth is murky and memories burn slow. If the first 9 stories shook you, the next 10 will leave you breathless. But here's the question that lingers. Did fame create the darkness, or did we, the fans, feed it? Donny Hathaway, the genius trapped inside his own voice. They called him the angel of R&B, but Donny never believed he was human. In the fragile corners of his mind, he was convinced the CIA was following him, listening through his guitar strings. Born into poverty, he rose from nothing with a voice so tender, so divine, it felt like heaven whispering through a broken man. But that same gift became his torment. In the late 1970s, while recording with Roberta Flack, Donny suddenly snapped. He smashed the studio apart, screaming that the microphone was killing him. The tape still exists. No music, just the sound of a man unraveling, a soul burning alive. "It was the first time I saw an artist cry blood," one technician said. "Not real blood, but a soul melting right in front of us." Behind closed doors, Donny battled demons no melody could calm. He'd disappear for days, then return home with newspaper clippings taped across the walls, maps of his paranoia, charts of his pain. His family stayed silent, terrified that calling the police would destroy the man and the music they loved. Then came that fateful night, January 13, 1979. Donny Hathaway was found dead, his body lying at the foot of New York's Essex House Hotel. Police called it suicide. But witnesses claimed they saw 2 men leaving his room moments before. No one ever investigated. He left no note, only a single line scrawled in his notebook. "I can no longer hear God." Gene Chandler, the gentleman with a dangerous secret. Gene Chandler, the man once known as the Duke of Earl, the picture of elegance in a crisp white tuxedo and a gentle smile that could charm an audience of thousands. On stage, he was the embodiment of class and grace, a gentleman who seemed untouched by scandal. But behind the polished facade was a life far darker than anyone imagined. In the early 1970s, whispers began to spread through the Southern tour circuit, rumors that Chandler was involved in an underground prostitution ring, allegedly exploiting young female fans who followed his shows. Inside sources at his record label scrambled to contain the damage. One internal memo read, "The image of the R&B gentleman must be protected at all costs." A former crew member later confessed, "I saw Gene take girls backstage. They never came out at the same time." Though he was never charged, the cloud of suspicion refused to fade. Soon after, his album Groovy Situation flopped, his tour was abruptly cancelled, and the once golden career began to crumble. According to one ex-lover, Chandler kept private photos of women hidden in a locked box under his bed. Insurance, she claimed, against those who threatened to expose him. When the threats became public, he quietly paid for silence. For nearly 2 decades, Gene Chandler vanished from the spotlight, retreating to a quiet life in the Chicago suburbs. When he finally returned in the 1990s, he told reporters, "I'm older now. I just want people to remember me for the music." But time doesn't always heal a stained legacy. For many, the name Gene Chandler no longer evoked the smooth voice of the Duke of Earl, but the haunting image of a man who had walked too close to the shadows. He never apologized publicly, but perhaps his silence said more than any confession ever could. Joe Tex, the hot-blooded cowboy who dared to challenge the godfather of soul for love. He wasn't afraid of James Brown, but what pushed him over the edge wasn't music, it was a woman. She had once been Joe's sweetheart, then fell under James Brown's spell, and later found her way back to Joe. But in 1963, in Macon, Georgia, that tangled love story exploded. James Brown showed up unannounced at Joe Tex's concert. When Joe performed "You Keep Her," a song with lyrics that mocked James as a love thief, the crowd roared. James didn't. Minutes later, chaos erupted. Armed men stormed backstage, gunshots cracked through the air, and the dressing room turned into a war zone. One witness said, "I thought I was in a gangster movie, but it was real." Joe Tex barely escaped with his life. But his career never recovered. Promoters feared trouble and blacklisted him from major shows. The once rising star grew bitter and restless. He drank heavily, clashed with fans, and fought with bandmates. One musician even canceled a tour, saying, "He stared at my girlfriend the whole night." By the early 70s, rumors tied Joe to extortion gangs in Houston. He was never arrested. Insiders claimed he paid to keep his name out of the papers, but his honest cowboy image was gone forever. Joe Tex died of a heart attack in 1982, just 47 years old. Yet fans still remember him, not just as a soul singer with fire in his voice, but as the man bold enough to challenge the king of soul himself, all for the love of one woman. A tragic reminder that passion, when mixed with pride, can destroy even the brightest stars. Al Green, a voice touched by heaven, a life scarred by hell. He made the church tremble with his angelic voice, turning gospel into gold. But behind the music of love and devotion, darkness waited. In 1974, inside a quiet home outside Memphis, Green's world turned into a nightmare. His girlfriend, Mary Woodson, arrived unannounced in the dead of night. While Al soaked in the bathtub, she silently poured a pot of boiling water over his back. Then, without a word, she walked into the bedroom and ended her own life with a gun. Police called it one of the most disturbing incidents in R&B history. Later reports revealed the truth behind the tragedy. Mary had discovered that Al was involved with multiple women, including one in New Orleans. The revelation broke her heart and shattered his life. Burned in both body and spirit, Al turned to God. He became a preacher, pouring his pain into gospel music. But even as he sought redemption, more women came forward with stories of emotional abuse. "I loved him with my heart," one wrote. "He loved me with his words." Today, Al Green still sings, his voice softer, his faith deeper, but the scars remain. To his fans, he will forever be the man with a soul of light, marked by the fire of love gone tragically wrong. Ray Charles, the blind king who saw everything except his own reflection. He couldn't see the light, but he saw every desire. Ray's genius lit up the world, yet his personal life burned in chaos. It said he fathered 12 children with 9 different women, though whispers claim the number was higher. Through the 1950s and 1970s, Ray battled a dangerous addiction. On the road, he was surrounded by a troupe of adoring dancers who called him Daddy. But behind the music, there were darker stories. A manager allegedly fired for refusing to bring an underage girl to Ray's hotel room in Detroit, a scandal that was swiftly buried by local papers and silenced by RCA Records money. In 1961, the law finally caught up. He was arrested with narcotics hidden inside a cassette case, a symbol of how far the addiction had taken him. A skilled lawyer saved him from prison, but not from the FBI's watch list. Inside secret files, Ray Charles was labeled as a man who posed a moral threat to society. When he died in 2004, his family's grief turned into a courtroom battle. Children demanded DNA tests. Millions were at stake. The music world mourned a legend, but the question lingered. How could a man who couldn't see the world so clearly see every temptation within it, and never see the consequences coming? Red Fox, the man who made America laugh till it cried, but whose real life was anything but funny. On stage, he was the king of comedy. Off stage, he was a reckless gambler, a serial heartbreaker, and a man drowning in chaos of his own making. Behind the punchlines were unpaid debts, failed marriages, and nights lost in Vegas brothels. Fox went bankrupt 3 times, each fall steeper than the last. In 1989, the IRS stormed a movie set and seized everything he owned, right in front of his cast and crew. But the moment that forever stained his legacy came when his ex-wife, battling a terminal heart condition, reached out to him for help. His cold reply through his secretary was, "Tell her I'm on tour." That was Red, the man who gambled away even his wedding ring, later calling it a good luck charm. After his financial ruin, he returned to performing in small, cheap casinos, once a legend, now playing for silence. Then, in 1991, while filming The Royal Family, he suddenly collapsed on set. The crew thought it was part of his act, until they realized it wasn't. His death was cruelly ironic. The man who played the poor but kind Fred Sanford died broke, unloved, and alone, leaving behind not laughter, but the echo of a final, tragic joke no one wanted to tell. Chuck Berry, the father of rock and roll, and the man haunted by his own hidden obsession. He built the very foundation of rock music, the swagger, the rhythm, the electric fire behind Johnny B. Good. But behind the legend's booming riffs and dazzling stage moves was a dark secret that would forever shatter his image. In 1990, Missouri police raided one of Berry's restaurants and uncovered dozens of hidden cameras secretly placed inside the women's restroom. The tapes showed women and girls, completely unaware, being recorded in the nude. Berry claimed the cameras were installed to catch drug dealers, but the footage told a different story. Former employees admitted they had long suspected something was wrong, but fear kept them silent. When the truth surfaced, lawsuits followed, dozens of them. Some were quietly settled out of court for over $1 million, but no amount of money could restore what was lost, his reputation. Behind closed doors, the man once known for Johnny B. Good became whispered about as Johnny B. Pervert. In his final years, Berry withdrew from the spotlight. No interviews, no new shows, just silence. When he died in 2017, the world celebrated the genius who gave birth to rock and roll, but avoided the scandal that stained his legacy. Because sometimes, music history doesn't just need applause, it needs an apology. Marvin Gaye, the angel of love consumed by desire. He was the man whose velvet voice could melt hearts and awaken souls, whispering love songs that defined a generation. But behind those tender lyrics hid a tormented man. In his private diary, Marvin once confessed, "I don't believe in love. I believe in possession." His marriage to Anna Gordy, sister of Motown's founder and 17 years his senior, was as passionate as it was poisonous. When that union crumbled, Marvin found himself drawn to Janice Hunter, a 17-year-old beauty who unknowingly became the centerpiece in his dark psychological games. Friends said Janice never realized she was living inside a story Marvin was writing to punish the world, and himself. Behind closed doors, his demons ran wild. Marvin's friends claimed he battled a deep addiction to sex and control. He allegedly filmed his lovers in secret, forcing them to watch the tapes later as twisted retribution. In his diary, he admitted that watching others suffer because of him stirred something he couldn't explain or stop. Haunted by guilt and exhaustion, Marvin retreated to his parents' home, a broken man searching for peace he would never find. On April 1, 1984, tragedy struck. His father, enraged by Marvin's lifestyle and self-destruction, pulled the trigger that ended his son's life. That day, the heart of soul music stopped beating. Marvin Gaye, the man who sang of love and mercy, was undone by his own darkness. A brilliant, tortured soul, proof that even those who sing about light can be devoured by the shadows within. James Brown, the godfather of soul. A man who ruled the stage with fire in his feet and thunder in his voice, but behind that dazzling smile was a storm no one could control. James Brown made the world dance, yet those closest to him often lived in fear. He was arrested more than 10 times for beating his wife, threatening girlfriends, and even waving a shotgun at a radio station. In 1988, things spiraled out of control. He stormed into an insurance office, accusing them of stealing his toilet. When police arrived, he fled, leading them on a wild highway chase until officers shot out his tires. Brown spent 15 months in prison. When he finally stepped out, flashing that same defiant grin, he declared to the cameras, "I'm still Mr. Dynamite." But the shadows followed him. A dancer once wrote a letter accusing him of rape. It vanished. A hospital worker recalled his wife showing up bruised, claiming she had fallen down the stairs. Toward the end of his life, Brown tried to make amends, founding an educational charity for Black children, a way to rewrite his story. Yet, the echoes of pain never disappeared. The women who loved him remembered the music, and the hands that hurt them. James Brown taught the world to groove, but he also reminded us that not every legend deserves to be idolized. Michael Jackson, the angel of music with hands forever shadowed by doubt. No one ever danced across the moon like Michael, but no one ever fell so far from its light. When the first child abuse allegations surfaced in 1993, the world froze in disbelief. The king of pop, accused of the unthinkable. The case was settled out of court, then another and another. Whispers became headlines. Rumors became wounds that never healed. At Neverland, a housekeeper claimed to have seen Michael asleep beside young boys. Years later, investigators seized tapes, comics, and unsettling evidence from a hidden room. His lawyers called it art, a misunderstood collection. The FBI called it surveillance. But nothing was ever proven. In 2009, the world lost him to a fatal overdose and gained an eternal question mark. To this day, more voices come forward, now grown, still haunted. "I don't know if I was abused or loved," one said. That's the most terrifying part. Michael Jackson remains a towering icon, a paradox of brilliance and brokenness. His music lifted millions, yet his name drifts in the uneasy silence between innocence and guilt. How do you love an angel whose wings are stained with suspicion? No one is born corrupted. Many who cause pain were once wounded themselves. If we truly love their art, perhaps the lesson is not to cancel them, but to understand the loneliness that drove them into darkness. Thank you for listening to these difficult truths. If you believe a person's past should not erase their humanity, leave a comment, like this video, and share it, not to judge, but to remind the world that understanding heals more than hate ever could.